Well, my name is Jack Boyd Smith Jr. of the JBS Collection, and you are?
I'm Travis Levine of Levine Restorations. So what are we talking about today?
We're talking about this Auburn that we have, 12-cylinder, 1934, originally owned by James Cagney.
Yes.
Drove it in a movie in 1934, The Mirror of Hell. So it appeared several times in the movie with him actually driving it.
Yep.
From my information, they made 4 of these. This is the only one with the rear-mounted spare left.
Yes. So this is a unique car. And I have to point out today, I had to bring my Auburn and Cord regalia. I brought my Cord hat
And your jacket.
and my Auburn service jacket today, Jack, in your honor. So I wore this specifically for today. We'll set this off to the side here. But this is a unique car because this is a Salon series. So in 33, Auburn was trying to do 2 things. One, they wanted to bring a 12-cylinder to market to compete with Cadillac, Packard, all of that. And 2, they wanted to try to upscale within the marque a line. And that's where the Salon series came from. And this is a continuation of what started in 32 really. 33, the Salon introduction. 12 was introduced in 32. And this is a 1250. So this being a Salon Series 34, there were 4 of these built. 2 certified. There may be a third that's been certified in the interim, but as of the time this car was purchased, there were 2 certified. And this is the only with the rear mount spare, which was what was used in the Mayor of Hell.
Right.
So this is a special car. And this car was a tremendous bargain. The cheapest 12-cylinder you could buy from them was $975. Which was insanely cheap relative to what was being offered by Packard and Cadillac and everything else. It was a ton of car for the money at that point in time. You had a dual-speed rear axle on these, the Columbia dual-speed rear axle. So these were a car that easily would do 100 miles an hour. The engine was really unique. The V shape of the wedge was 45 degrees instead of 60, which is what you traditionally saw in a lot of the manufacturers of multi-cylinder. So it was really tall engine, really beautiful. You had intake and exhaust manifolds hanging off both sides, horizontal valves. I mean, it was a really cool engineered engine. And so much so, to try to catch up with what was going on, Cord spent $1 million to develop this engine. And they only used it for 2.5 years.
In the 30s.
Yes.
That was huge money.
Huge money. But I know for you, there's a reason you bought it. And that's James Cagney.
James Cagney.
Why?
No question.
Talk me through that.
Probably my love of history, the preservation of things, the original ownership and provenance of the car makes it unique. I mean, there's other cars out there, but they don't have the provenance of this one.
Sure.
I mean, name recognition. I mean, his name was huge, played the part of, for people that are older, he played the part of a gangster from, I think Born on the 4th of July, Yankee Doodle Dandy, song and dance type man.
Sure. No, it's one of the things I love about you. You find cars, you love cars that have history beyond just the car. The provenance, the ownership. You have several cars in the collection that have Hollywood connections or, notable characters in period. Obviously, the Amelia Earhart Cord. You've got the Louis Arnold Boyd car.
Whenever you get a story behind any car, it elevates the importance of that car.
Sure.
It gives you something more to talk about, because I've had several people that have come in here, and I'm not a car person. I'm not into old cars type attitude.
Sure.
And I take them through and I walk them through and I said, I think you've converted me.
I can see why, looking around here, that'd be the case.
But yeah, when you start and talk about the cars and there's a story, now there's a connection. They have something to embrace.
Talk to me about what you like about this car.
I like the paint scheme on it, the drivability. I mean, it's fun to drive. Of course, we drive everything in the collection. You boil it down, it's just a cool looking car.
It is. I love the grills on these. The integration of the V grill with the horizontal slatting, parabolic headlamps, which are really, really unique. We didn't restore this car, as you know, and I believe Brian Joseph restored this car back in the 80s, and Brian Joseph owned Classic and Exotic, a lot of Auburn Cord Duesenberg stuff, so it's a very, very great car. And drivability-wise, these things are amazing. obviously being an Elkhart, we're a stone's throw away from Auburn. Very storied history. Auburn Core Duesenberg Company made some of the most notable American cars of all time. What speaks to you about Auburn from a history perspective?
Indiana.
Sure.
I mean, local car, really moderately priced for its competitors.
Sure.
I mean, as you said, Packard was in that $5,000 to $10,000 range. Was this car $1,300 new?
I would say the Salon series, this was probably more around the ballpark of $2,000 to $2,500, but still, that was half of a competing Packard.
Right.
Which, these things made 160 horsepower in 34. Packard was making 160 basically at that point in time. Cadillac with their 16 was making 175. So this was it was all the performance in the world for no money, which was pretty incredible. But talk me through, you've got cars in the collection that are going to be restoration projects, and you've got cars in the collection you're going to leave as is. Which is this for you?
I would say this is probably leave it as it is. I mean, you and I talked about restoring it and taking it to ACD.
Mm-hmm.
Our problem right now that you and I have is there's too many cars in the queue that are much rarer than this.
Sure.
That need to be restored. This doesn't have to be restored.
No.
But there's other cars that you've identified really for the next, 5 years.
I think so.
It doesn't mean we're not going to do it. It doesn't have to be done. But I want to get through the list that we have now because we got some rare cars coming up.
Sure. Well, and it's always interesting when you look at the scale of rarity, right? Obviously, this is being the only dual mount, rear mount spare, I should say. It's a super rare Auburn. And 34 was kind of an interesting transitional year. A lot of the styling on some of the models wasn't really well received. And that's when they brought Gordon Bierig in to do, obviously, the redesign on your Speedster, the 850 series
35.
cars. Yep. But it is I love this car. It's one of my favorite ones you have in the collection. We haven't talked about that much over the years. The stainless trim along the side and the styling of this is just peak classic era for me. And I've always loved how Auburn's belt molding comes up and comes over the hood in that era. It's just beautiful. So I whatever you do with it, get it out and drive it. That's for sure. But it's just a stunning car. I think a fair way of describing your museum is this a driving collection.
It is.
You restore cars, you take them through the show circuit, and then you drive them. The connection to the cars, the history, and how it's a very emotional and soothing experience to drive these cars, very connected to the vehicles. And I think that's something that with the classic era in particular, because it is so far removed from everyday life, a lot of people don't really think about them or understand and appreciate them for what they are. And that's something that I absolutely love about what you do with your driving days. And that's why I say, going back to this, when I see people get into this car and you tell them like, hey, do you know who owned this car originally? And they're like, who? James Cagney.
But it's amazing, the whole evolution of the auto industry has changed so drastically in the last 100 years, but yet it hasn't changed at all.
Sure.
I mean, we're dealing with a steering wheel. Originally they came out with a tiller for a boat. But, since they put the steering wheel in, we still have steering wheels. But the whole concept of enclosed cabin and four wheels and a steering wheel, I mean, today's cars now have, connect to your cell phone and backup cameras. And so the technology has improved, but the functionality is still the same as it was 90 years ago.
We talk about it in the shop especially with our apprentices, thinking about the logic behind these cars. And I always say, it's all physics. It's applied physics, but there are certain principles that have to be there. There has to be a method of propulsion. There has to be a method to steer. There has to be a method to stop. And there's got to be a way to hold people to all that. And you're right. There's really nothing new under the sun with these cars. And some of the technology that these automotive manufacturers were using at this point in time, synchronized transmissions and overhead cams and, when you roll the windows down on some of these cars, they'd have plates that would come around and prevent rain from coming in and make a cleaner look and whatnot. It was really incredible technology that they were using at a point in time where everybody was just coming up with new ideas because it was only 20, 30 years into the genesis of these automobiles. Well, Jack, as always, thank you very much for taking the time today. This is a fantastic car. Thank you very much for doing all that you do, and keep doing it. If you'd like to see more information, detailed photos, and a bit of history on each of these cars in this series and more, visit thejbscollection.com. Check us out on Instagram and on Facebook.